So welcome to this edition of Kenmogi's Street Brain Radio. So the world of artificial intelligence is really moving really fast, and people are talking about getting out of jobs and humans being replaced by artificial intelligence systems, students cheating on exams and school reports and so on. But I even see more serious danger here, which is something that concerns us all. Probably we will have a spiritual crisis in the beginning and in the making, because after all, natural languages are central to what we are, at least as we understand it, and in the conventional sense. And the fact that chatbots created by the transformer architecture, pioneered by Google, but now dominated by Microsoft, contrary to the wishes of Elon Musk. They appear to be so superb that we are questioning the significance of our own existence. So I think in the years to come, I think we would be increasingly marginalized, all of us. And, the generative AIs would be able to replace humans in terms of natural language processing and production, music processing and production, art generation and processing, and maybe distribution, probably not appreciation. But all these indicators would suggest that, we would be probably extinct as creators of these art forms, because the chatbots are cheaper, ubiquitous, and they are tireless. They don't have to sleep, and they are still in the early stages of development. So I've seen an article, probably somewhere, by a female writer, that probably we should slow down AI development. Quite possibly there could be a AI winter. And up to today, AI winter referred to the fact that research on artificial intelligence systems sometimes stalled. They came to a stalemate where no substantial progresses were made. But now we might be talking about winter, in terms of the fact that we humans are eclipsed. When we no longer count, we no longer valid entities in terms of the practical use of generation. So we may actually generate text for fun still, recreational use of text generation, but for professional uses, maybe it would be there as a kind of assistant to rectify and otherwise align the outputs of the generative AIs, text, images, and so on. So this is really a serious situation, I think. So in this episode, I would like to ponder what's going to happen while walking in Tokyo. It's not a fun thing to think about this. It's rather a sad thing to think about this, I think. Let's see how it goes. Currently, I'm coming to Bunge Shinju, arguably the heart of Japanese literature. Bunge Shinju is closely coupled, related to two prestigious literary prizes. Arguably the most, prestigious literary prizes in Japan, the Academy Prize and Naoki Prize. And I'm going to give a public lecture in Bunge Shinju, not on literature, mind you. This is about the human resources. Really interesting topic, considering the fact that we are in this crisis mode, code red, according to the CEO of Alphabet, the holding company of Google. Anyway, I've come to Bunge, so I'll probably stop here for a while and come back to you later. So I'm back on the streets after doing my public lecture at Bunge, and I've been talking about pivoting and the rapid development of artificial intelligence in Japanese, to the Japanese audience. Anyway, I'm back on the Tokyo streets, and I'm going to talk about the damaging effects of artificial intelligence on spirituality. So so far I think we have been comparing the excellence in specific domains among ourselves. Some people might be good at calculating, some people might be good at linguistic processing, some people might be good at poetry, and some people might write novels well, some people might be good communicators, and so on. So that has been the measures against which we would assess each other, and that way we have been more or less humanized, because to be human is to know one's position in society, and without these measures we wouldn't be able to tell where we stand. And by the way, I'm just recording for a moment because I just realized that I'm probably tired from talking in Japanese, giving a lecture, so I'll give my throat some rest. So I'll stop recording now for the moment. So I have rested for a while, so I think my voice is back to normal, I think. The advent of artificial intelligence is actually like the emergence of oxygen in the Earth environment. Informationally speaking, oxygen increased in the history of Earth, and we have developed the ability to make use of the oxygen in terms of breathing and breathing out and burning molecules within our body, so that we could extract useful energy from that. And in order to do that, we have incorporated mitochondria, which some theory holds that were separate beings from our cells. But because of the emergence of oxygen, it was useful to incorporate mitochondria into our cells, and we started to make use of the oxygen in the atmosphere. Probably the same is going to happen about information generated by generative AI. We're going to see a world where information is abundant. Earlier, interesting information were not abundant. We were always hungry for information, but because of the advent of the internet and the ability to store information, digital information, permanently, we are bombarded with ever-increasing hordes of information, so that there is a linear or exponential increase of information, and we are never tired of being entertained. We have access to all these different manifestations of videos and music and texts and so on. So information is not a scarcity anymore. But that means that also that we are probably saturated with the information. We are living in a world of information diabetes. We sugar used to be a scarcity in the environment, so we have developed fondness of sugar. But in civilized society, we have abundance of sugar, so we need to cut some sugar intake, otherwise we'll become sick. The same can be probably said about information. We are constantly fed with information, so probably our brains are saturated, but that is going to be accelerated because of the advent of generative AIs. They're gonna, generate tons of images and sounds and videos, so that we would never run out of relevant information. So that's going to be the information oxygen, if you like, in the environment. So that's a total change in the environment. So we need to adapt to that, unless, of course, we stop the development of artificial intelligence altogether, especially generative AI. But I think that's not going to happen. Probably generative AIs are here to stay, and we need to adapt to that. So, the crisis that generative AIs would bring would be twofold. First, on the receiving side, we would be overwhelmed by the presence of ever-increasing information. On the producing side, we would feel left out, as regards creative processes are concerned, because the majority of us would feel that we don't need to be involved in the creative process personally anymore. We would be producers, and ours will be, just choosing probably between different outputs of generative AIs. The quantum jump from the GPT-3 to ChatGPT has been the human tailoring. The humans told the AIs to produce outputs that were liked by humans. So humans were, in a sense, tutors for the generative AIs. But that is to say, from different perspective, we would be more or less, subsidiaries of generative AIs. We would probably, doing a mentoring job for generative AIs. But when you say mentoring, it doesn't mean that we are we are on the top of AIs. We could be actually serving the AIs, by tuning their abilities to the likeness of us, but never really controlling the outputs themselves. Because we are at the mercy of ever overwhelming hordes of information generated by the AI. So when we do choose, that would probably be in a passive capacity. We wouldn't be the masters of the generation process. We would be just, servants of choosing the appropriate outputs from the multitude of parameters that are inherent in the generative AIs. We would be actually chemicals that would fine-tune the network of the generative AIs. We would be almost like neurotransmitters. That's the human, destination. Because compared to our brains, the large language models are totally huge. Each of us cannot handle the entirety of the text on the internet, and the large language models can do that. Actually, that is the very rationale for their existence. So, when we are in face to face to these artificial intelligence systems, we are, on the scale of maybe the neurotransmitters between neurons. I mean, each of us would be like dopamine or, endorphin or GABA, and when we do make choices, that would tune neural networks in such a way that they would start to grow, start to adjust themselves, and we would be there to fine-tune them, but we would never be masters of the situation. We would be, because we cannot see the entirety of the system. That's one other problem. Not none of us oversees the development of AI. One striking example is the case of OpenAI. Elon Musk was one of the people who started that, but he didn't foresee a future where Microsoft would have proprietary rights to the outputs of the generative AI, so that now AI is the ChatGPT and GPT-4 money-making machines for Microsoft. Elon Musk didn't foresee that. Elon Musk conceived of OpenAI in a way that would make artificial intelligence systems more democratic, more open to the general public. But that didn't happen, and even Elon Musk couldn't foresee a future where large language models would be incorporated into Microsoft search engine, and nobody's controlling the entirety of things. So we are, in that sense too, just tiny molecules, neurotransmitters in the vast universe of artificial intelligence systems. That's the reality of today. So what do we do? I don't know. I'll stop the recording for a moment. So I'm walking again, and so the human brain is very good at adapting to changes. Even when the change is very rapid, abrupt. For example, the social reforms have been conducted in many countries, including this one. In the Meiji Restoration, Japan modernized quite rapidly, and the samurai ruling class were dissolved, and they made way to a whole strata of civil population who competed to occupy government positions and in the new government, and the emperor exerted a direct rule rather than indirectly through the shogun who have ruled Japan for hundreds of years. So that happened in this country. So, and the human brain, the Japanese people's brain adapted to that. The same was true when Industrial Revolution happened in Europe, and when independence was realized in the United States. All these wonderful changes, for good or for worse, were opportunities for the human brain to adapt. So, it is not unknown that the human brain would make these adaptations. However, having said that, it's quite a different story for the coming adaptation for the human brain to the newly emerging artificial intelligence systems, especially generative AI. The way we probably would have to adapt to these systems would be totally different in terms of the scale and the speed and the universality of the changes. and it's quite unprecedented. So I don't know, and we don't know if it will have a happy ending. It is going to be the most dramatic change that the human brain is going to be exposed, for sure. And there's no escaping it, because once these things are started, it's almost an arms race. This competition between Google and Microsoft, for example, is an arms race, and sooner or later the lucrative advertisement industry on the internet would be divided by monopolizing companies, and we cannot yet see whether Google will be able to keep its dominance as it is doing right now. It's quite fascinating how things would develop, and we're talking not only in terms of organizational adaptations, but also in terms of individual adaptations. The school system is going to be disrupted, and for example, many of you have already said this, but school assignments would have to be rethought and revamped and redesigned because of the advent of generative AIs. And so we genuinely don't know what these things would entail. And we don't know whether the changes would be for the better or for the worse. The only reality, the only certainty is that there's going to be change. A lot of it, drastic changes. So I'm coming to a place where I need to stop again. So I stop my recording here. Come back to you later. So creative something is actually a task with a heavy cognitive load. So we do not necessarily do that for useless purposes. So for example, when we say something, it is usually for some purposes. I mean, unless you're a poet who would make nonsensical poems, when you say something in your daily life, it is just it serves some practical purposes. So when generative AIs generate, they hallucinate without any regard for the cost of putting a word into the open. It is a totally different game entirely. When I'm speaking into my iPhone like this while walking in Tokyo, I am doing this for the purpose of establishing a case about the effect that AI would have on cognitive processes, and in that step, I would like to notice something. I would like to be aware of something. So I do not waste my words. I could be doing something else. Actually, you could be doing something else apart from listening to me like this. I could be doing something else apart from talking into my iPhone like this. So it's it should be a cost-effective process. I mean, otherwise it doesn't serve any purpose in life. But not so for generative AIs. I mean, they can generate tons of words without any regard for the effectiveness of the production, because they do not have a cost structure. I mean, their time is not so precious. Our time is precious. Our 1 hour is precious, but not so for generative AIs. Their time is dispensable. In terms of computational time. Well, probably it'll be possible for them to, process an entire language in one's lifetime. Ever since my childhood, I have, processed language. First in native Japanese, and then sometimes in English and German, French, and so on. But if I take all of these things into one, it's not such a big deal for generative AIs. They can process the entire information in a snap. So that's a very dehumanizing aspect of generative AIs, I think. Scale-wise, we cannot compete. When we read, we take every read seriously. I mean, after all, we are dedicating a very precious part of our lives to a particular text. So when we read a text, we do so with such a concern. I mean, when I read a book, of course, people read books to kill the time. But even when they kill the time, they would like to get something out of it, because they're exchanging the most valuable commodity in life, time, with that experience. So the most damaging feeling that we can get is the feeling that we have wasted something, and because we have wasted our time, because that's the worst thing that could happen. Wasting your time. But not for artificial general intelligence systems. They can waste tons of time. It's not their concern. I mean, they can dispense with huge amount of memory space and processing time. Of course, in a sense, the time is limited, but because the processing is so far and the memory space is so vast, they do not have to use them sparingly. So that's the most dehumanizing aspect of generative AIs. We feel so dispensable. Indeed, the whole output of one's lifetime is dispensable. There was this project about short story writing in Japan, and there was this novelist, rather really uniquely talented novelist, Shinichi Hoshino. He wrote, I think, thousands of short novels, and because of that, some AI researchers could study how Shinichi Hoshi wrote these short novels, and they could try to emulate Shinichi Hoshino's writings, and they came halfway towards reproducing a new, simulating a new novel by Shinichi Hoshi. But you cannot do that for Haruki Murakami, because if you put all his writings together, that wouldn't suffice. That wouldn't, serve as a sufficiently large data set for reproducing Haruki Murakami's novel in a meaningful way. So, this is the problem. I mean, this is a problem that, these artificial intelligence language systems, they're so dehumanizing. For the lack of better words, they do not care. I mean, they don't care. They don't care. They don't care about the, our entire lives. Each of us doesn't care. Each of us doesn't count for the generative AI systems. That's the greatest tragedy, if you like, of the human existence. In the face of artificial intelligence systems, we don't count. We don't count. That's why I keep saying that probably the advent of artificial intelligence systems means a really devastating phase in the whole history of humans. I'm coming to a place where I need to stop again, so I'll stop. I'll talk to you later. By the way, what I've been saying in the last 10 minutes or so doesn't mean anything in the face of artificial intelligence systems. So this has been a kind of disrupted session of Street Brain Radio, but I think I'll probably stop pretty soon, because otherwise this is again going to be extended to tomorrow, and it's not such a great idea. As I was saying, I think humans would increasingly feel abused by artificial intelligence, because we are just materials. It's quite interesting because some people have argued that post-humanism or transhumanism would come, and in that context, they have been discussing the possibilities of mind uploading and whole brain emulation and so on. And in that worldview, we would be nothing but an organic vat, petri dish, of which data would be nurtured and then extracted to the computer and discarded, probably. Well, I can only laugh at these naive ideas, but some people do maintain that. But, even without going to that extreme, I think we are, in a sense, just data points for the large language models and generative AIs in general. If you are an illustrator, if you draw a picture, that would only constitute a data point, literally, of the millions of pictures collected by artificial intelligence. So, in a sense, it is such a brutal treatment of humans. We are not respected as individuals. We're just a data point. And that, I think, is the most dehumanizing aspect of artificial intelligence today. So, on that rather pessimistic note, I think I will come close to the ending of this episode of Street Brain Radio. So I will probably sum. Generative AIs are great. However, the way they are constructed statistically based on many data points would mean that we are marginalized. We are dehumanized, every one of us, no matter how talented and uniquely individual you are. So that means in the coming era, we need to be really cautious, because otherwise we will be just data points. And, we are not definitely data points. So if we are treated as data points by artificial intelligence systems, that would be the worst hallucination that large language models are capable of. And we do not have to tangle with that hallucination. So with that thought, I stop recording and thank you for listening.